Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, my name is Audrey Hope and I post acting videos. So today I wanted to talk about something that I wish someone had talked to me about when I first started acting, is how to not get taken advantage of in the acting industry, because the sad truth is actors are taken advantage of all the time because it is a buyer's market. The sad reality is there are way more actors than there are roles out there, so they know that you are desperate, you want to roll, and if you don't do what they say, they can find someone that will. And that really sucks, and it's something that every actor has to come to terms with, is that you're not on top, you're not the boss, you are at the liberty of these directors. Once you're a huge A-lister, you have way more room to make demands. Something that you have to realize is directors hold all the power. You need to be really careful, as any job that, is someone in power, like the president, a mayor, a police officer, something with power, it's going to attract those people that are just simply power hungry and like having control over people. So that's something you need to be aware of, is you're definitely probably going to run into directors that it's a power trip for them, and most actors are extremely desperate people because you want this so bad and you've been told to suffer for your art and to do whatever is asked of you, because you're a nobody. They love to play on that, and they're used to actors being that way. There's a happy medium that you need to find of standing up for yourself and not, letting things go to just get a role or to get something in the industry, but also being someone that's easy to work with and willing to make sacrifices within reason. So all that being said, we need to be aware that as us actors, we do not have a lot of power, and we are in a position to get manipulated and taken advantage of. It's a very scary industry, and it's not just for girls, it's for guys as well. It's definitely something you need to be aware of, and these are things that I wish people told me from the beginning when I started acting. Non-union stuff is when you're in the most danger. They don't have to follow the same rules as SAG sets. That's why once you become a successful actor, you join SAG and you only work on SAG projects, so you don't risk ending up on a non-union set like the ones I'm about to talk about. Non-union projects are pretty much what everyone starts on. You kind of have to do them. It's a rite of passage. I still do non-union stuff. It's something you have to do most of the time to get footage and stuff. But basically, non-union projects don't go through SAG. So it's just a project being made on their own. They don't have to follow any of the same laws or rules. And this is where you can get into sticky situations. Because they answer to no one, you can get put in some really sketchy situations. So when you do audition for non-union projects, I would make sure before you agree to do the project, make sure some ground rules are put in place. If you are doing an intimacy scene, I would request that there be an intimacy coordinator on set. You really don't want to be doing an intimate scene on a non-union project with no intimacy coordinator and it's just the director directing that. I think that's a pretty unsafe situation. I would make sure there's an intimacy coordinator. I'm not saying, you shouldn't do an intimacy scene in a non-union project, but you do need to be careful. I really recommend, if you are someone with an agent and you're doing non-union projects, let your agent negotiate your contract for you, because they know what to look for and they're going to make sure you get the best contract and the best set experience possible. And also, people that do non-union projects are more likely to treat you better if they know that you have an agent and that you can go to your agent if something's kind of off, versus just someone that's just, a completely new actor. Think through the script and the material and make sure that you really think it's worth it. Make sure you talk to the director and everything, and make sure everything feels safe before you proceed. And these non-union things can turn into really sticky situations. Once you do a project with them, they can use your face and you in their project forever. So if you ever do hit it big, they still have this footage of you. So from the very beginning of your acting career, you should be operating under the impression that you are going to be famous one day, and they're gonna find everything you've ever done. I mean, you see those like silly commercials that come out of like A-list actors that they did in the beginning of their career. That does not mean that you should be turning stuff down and being snooty and only taking certain roles, but also it should make you very careful about who you choose to work with, because your name is now tied to them. and also the kind of material that the project is, or if you know this project is just going to turn out terribly, you might not want to have your name connected to it because other roles will come along. When you first start, you're so desperate for just getting on a set and just getting footage, but I promise you it will come. You can get a demo reel filmed for you. You don't need to go on these dangerous sets to just get footage, because trust me, I was there. I was willing to work on anything, and now looking back, I'm like, I should have probably just held off a little bit, because now this is out forever and I am not proud of it. We're all gonna have our embarrassing projects. You know, that's something that's unavoidable. It's okay, but I'm more talking about something that you're not proud of or you're uncomfortable with will be out there forever. So just do not let yourself get caught up in the moment of having to sacrifice moral codes or anything like that, or just something that doesn't sit right with you just because you feel like you need to take every role. Sadly, the main thing you have to worry about is directors, and this can be on SAG projects as well. It's a lot worse on non-union projects because they have no rules, but that does not mean that you're 100% in the clear on SAG projects. Also, crew does not have to get background checks, so you do not know who you're on set with, so you need to be aware 24/7. And I try to not be alone ever, especially when I was a kid. Tried to always be with my mom, because really anyone can be working in the film industry. It's a really, really sad truth, but like I said in the beginning of the video, a lot of directors are in it for the power trip. I personally have worked with a director that I really regret working with, and he made me very uncomfortable and crossed many boundaries. I was only 17 at the time, so I wasn't even aware of what was happening, but looking back now, I can see with like full clarity what happened, and I really want you guys to be careful and not be put in a position like I was. So a lot of times, directors that behave inappropriately really copy a lot of the same traits as groomers. Your first little red flag warning should be, number one, if any actor has talked about having a bad experience working with them. Really listen to other actors. People say, like, don't gossip, don't talk about other people in the industry's small, like you need to keep everyone happy. I do not agree with that at all. I think gossip can be a healthy thing, because I think it's almost like you being an accomplice if you stay quiet, knowing that something inappropriate could be going on a set, or someone made you uncomfortable and you don't tell anyone and you let other people go into that dangerous situation without a fair warning. That doesn't mean, you know, you need to like speak out or whatever, but if you have friends that are in contact with this director or, you know, anything like that, I really think that you do owe them to at least warn them. You don't have to go into detail, but warn them. And I think us other actors need to learn to respect other people's experiences and opinions more, because me personally, like, I have warned people about this specific director and a lot of them don't listen because they're so desperate to just get into something, and you know, that hurts my heart because it's like almost they don't believe me, or they think that they could do something to stop it that I didn't do. Number one is you should let people know if something's going on, and number two, if someone warns you about a director, please respect them. You know, also, if it's someone that is, you know, known for lying, or just someone that you don't trust and value, maybe don't listen, you know, do with that as you will. But if it's someone that you actually respect and know, you should really listen to them, because 9 times out of 10, they're probably telling the truth, because that's really not something that you make up. So yeah, that's my number one tip, is listen to other people, hear what other people are saying about certain people in power and directors and stuff like that. It's not just directors, it can be producers and cinematographers and all of that sort of thing. So another thing you need to be on the lookout for is really anybody, but specifically directors, crossing the boundary of director and friend. So a director is a very touchy relationship. It's almost like a teacher, because they're in a position of power and they're kind of controlling everything. You know, just like a teacher controls your grades and they're teaching you something. That's really what a director is. They're directing you in this role, and they also have a lot of power over your career. I really, really think that directors should keep a strictly platonic, not friendship relationship, especially before and during the shoot. You know, if it's a director that you've worked with many times, it's okay to like build somewhat of a friendship, but if from the very beginning a director is trying to immediately cross that boundary of friend and director, it can become a very touchy situation. There shouldn't be feelings involved when someone is your director. Any kind of feelings. That's my opinion. Other people might not agree, but from someone who's had a bad experience, that's how I feel like you can protect yourself more. So that should be your first red flag, is if a director is kind of pushing that boundary, and especially if it makes you uncomfortable, don't just write that off or think that you're being dramatic. Like, you have that feeling for a reason. Another thing that has happened to me and happens to a lot of people, especially on non-union stuff, is script changes. So you get a script, well, you audition, you get a script, you agree to do the part, you book the role, and then once you're either on set and filming or right before and you've already agreed to it, they throw in some changes. And that's something you have to be really, really, really careful with, because especially when it's an intimate scene or honestly anything, it's a really easy way for a director to manipulate you into doing something that you might have said no to in the very beginning, but now that you've already started filming and you have a friendship with them, or you feel like you owe them something and you know them, you have to say yes. And I've had friends who are on set and they rewrite the scene in front of you and have you go do this. And I think that's really not at all professional and is extremely not a safe situation to be in, because it's kind of putting pressure on someone. So if they do try to do a script rewrite, I would say, okay, I need to take some time to step away and like think about this. You know, if it's something silly like just a line, but I've had whole scenes change and become a whole different scene with things that I was not necessarily aware I would be doing from the beginning of the shoot, if that makes sense. So definitely be wary of if they're doing script changes super last minute and it's pushing the envelope. If it's just simple, it's normal for scripts to have changes, but it's something that's pushing the envelope and pushing what you're willing to do, you really, and everyone thinks like, this stuff like rarely happens, or like I would know if it's happening to me, like I would never let that happen, or that's a rare situation. It happens way more than you think. As someone who's been in the industry since I was 12, it's happened to me, and I know of several people that it's happened to, and I'm sure it's happened to some of my friends who haven't even noticed or told me about. But once it is happening to you, you notice it less, because you're caught up in the situation and you have a relationship with this director, you know, whether it be a friend thing or even just like, I respect you as my director, you have some feelings towards them. You know, they offered you a role, they entrusted you with this character, you're naturally going to feel like you owe them something. Okay, another thing is directors will use you, a lot of times if it's the ones that are crossing the friend boundary and stuff, use you to get to other actors. So, you know, when you're an actor and you've been in the industry for a while, you have a lot of actor friends. Some may be more successful than you, some may be just starting out. And a lot of times directors like to try to get to know all of your friends. And that can also be a sticky situation, because, you know, if you've had a bad site experience and then they're reaching out to your friends and you have to go tell all your friends this, and they're then using you to get to maybe bigger named people, that's also a red flag. It's really not professional for a director to be going to an actor directly and saying, hey, I know your friend, without talking to you first. So if someone's doing that, you should say, hey, before you reach out to someone, can you let me know and I'll go tell them you're interested? That's what I would like from a director, because I've had some, you know, pretty big name like Netflix actors that like watch my videos and, you know, they come to me for advice, and then I've had directors that I've had a bad experience with reach out to these people directly without me even knowing and offering them roles and asking for them to audition, and I won't even know that until the person's already agreed to do the project. So that's something that you should have a red flag for. That's not very normal of people to do. And that goes back to my be very careful what projects you accept to do, because the sad reality is once you do a project, your name is forever tied to that person, your name is forever tied to that project, and there's nothing you can do to separate that unless you know, come out with like a public statement of like, I would never work with this person again, they're terrible. But even then, you know, not everyone's going to see that post, or it gives that director more attention, and no one wants to have to do that. So once you work with someone, say you blow up, or even just, you know, you're just an actor, you know, and your friends know you're an actor, whatever, you have a reputation, and who you work with then also reflects on your reputation. So once you work with someone, it's pretty much saying, I approve of them, they're great, I've worked with them. Because then, you know, your friends see that, or your followers or your fans see that person and think, oh, they've worked with Audrey, it's fine, like, it's great, that's exciting. And just because you know someone that's worked with them doesn't mean that they're a good person. And I really recommend that if someone does reach out to you and say, hey, I know so-and-so, would you work for my thing? Or oh, someone reached out to me and I know so-and-so's worked with them, or just you get an audition and you know someone that's been in one of their things, just reach out to the friend and say, hey, like, this is so cool, I just got this opportunity, like, how was it working with them? Even if it's not in a sketchy way that they reach out to you, just always put that feeler out. If I've ever worked with someone and they give you an audition, please come to me and I will reply and I will give you my honest opinion on what it was like to work with them, because that is my duty. But that being said, also, when you're the person that's worked with them, you're now tied to them, and everyone that works with them that knows you and maybe trusted this person because it's not your fault if something bad happens, or, you know, they choose to work with them and something goes wrong. That's not your fault, but also it will hurt you. Coming from personal experience, it does hurt to know that your reputation is tied to someone that they're probably gonna have a bad experience with. So then that's gonna change their point of view on you. And also, when you work with someone, you know, you're giving them more power, especially if you do become, when you become very successful, they're going to be able to use your power more to make themselves more powerful and to get more resources. And the sad truth is, even if you do have a bad experience and you come out and talk about it, a lot of people aren't going to listen to you, because like I said, us actors are desperate and we usually have to learn for ourselves. So yeah, my main things are, do not get caught up in the excitement of a role and the excitement of booking something, especially when it's your first thing, because we are all just waiting to get on set. But don't get caught up in the excitement and ignore a voice in the back of your head. That's my main tip. And then also, you know, if you're planning on working with someone new or someone reaches out to you, try to see if you have a mutual and you can ask them their opinion, especially if it's like a non-union thing. This is less of like a SAG thing and more of like a non-union thing, because if it's SAG, you can go to SAG directly and tell them the problem you're having, or go to your agent, and they also have rules you have to follow. But non-union, all of us non-union actors have to stick together because it's all word of mouth. So really listen to your fellow actors, and if you do have a bad experience with someone, don't be scared to like let other people know in the industry. You don't have to come out and do this like big video, but do, you know, in your community, warn people about what's going on. And just do not be scared to put up boundaries and stand up for yourself, because I was so young when this happened that I thought it was my fault, and I always would be like, oh, if something ever happened to me, like, I'd come out and talk about it. But when it happens to you, it really does feel partly your fault, and it's embarrassing. And so I really didn't want to talk about it. But now that I'm older and I look back, I'm like, wow, no matter what you did as a minor, it was not your fault. And no matter how you behaved, whatever, it was still on that adult director in a position of power, and nothing you did was wrong. Because I was like, oh, I kind of let them in as a friend, like I shouldn't have done that, that's my fault, I probably let them feel like they were too comfortable with me. No, as the person in power and as the adult, they should have known. So please do not like blame yourself or let yourself feel like it's your fault. It's not. If something feels off, it's off, okay? And don't ignore that. Please do not feel like you can't put up boundaries just because you're an actor and they could find anyone. And please don't feel like you can't speak up for yourself on set, and after you film, anytime, you should stand up for yourself, okay? A lot of people that do become really successful actors have been business smart from the beginning, making smart business moves, even if in the moment it didn't feel like the best choice, like, oh, maybe I should have just done that project, maybe I should have just taken it. But your gut feeling will be right. It'll tell you whether you should do something or not, and out of desperation, you shouldn't go into something that you don't feel 100% about. I really hope that was helpful. I know that was a lot, but there's so many great people in the industry. This is not to deter you. I've met some of the best people in the world, and there's just those few and far between bad people, which you're gonna have anywhere. And if you know the warning signs and you know how to stand up for yourself, that's really all that matters. I believe in every single one of you. I hope we can be on set together one day and work together. But like I said, if anyone ever reaches out to you that is someone that I've worked with, please come to me and I will honestly tell you what I think. Or even just, you know, a non-union, you know, filmmaker, maybe that I don't even seem like I know, I can talk to other people and make sure it's a safe situation. As always, I'm always here for you guys. If you have any questions, please leave them down below or DM me on Instagram. I try to reply to everyone. But I love every single one of you and I appreciate your support. And I'll see you next Saturday.